This is the Thoughtful Travel Podcast. I'm your host, Amanda Kendall of the notaballerina.com travel blog. Every episode I'll share travel tales from several fellow travel lovers, and together we hope to entertain and inspire you, remind you of some of your own great travel experiences, and encourage you to hit the road again soon. Hello and welcome to episode 222 of the Thoughtful Travel Podcast. Today's topic is meaningful shopping and souvenirs. Now, I'm not a huge shopper. There's certain things I love to go online shopping for, books being one of them. But in general, I'm not going to, I don't spend a lot of my time shopping as such. But when I'm traveling, I do really love to kind of poke around and try and find interesting, usually small because of the space, things that I can buy, that I can bring home, that are meaningful in some way, hopefully that are also useful, that I can actually make use of, because I kind of find that if I'm using something every day, like I have some little muesli bowls that I bought in a Japanese 100 yen shop a couple of trips ago, and, it just makes me remember that, makes me remember that I miss Japan mostly. But if I have those kind of small reminders around the house and I get to use them and see them, then it's kind of like, a little bit of travel every day. And I suspect many of you are probably similar. So that's what we're going to be talking about today. I thought I'd start off by telling you a couple of my favourite things that I just went for a quick wander around the house, and what I came across was a couple of things. One of my favourite pairs of earrings, they're amber earrings from Russia, and I remember buying them when I was on my second trip to Russia with my mum. So it was really a special trip anyway, and I love these earrings and I wear them really quite often because, they have good memories attached, and they're nice earrings too, so bonus. And the other thing I found was something that sits in my kitchen. Sits up on a bench in my kitchen where I see it regularly. And it's a funny little tiny Lego set of two sunflowers. Sunflowers are my favourite flowers. And you can turn them and they'll spin around. And I particularly love this one because when we were in Denmark, the home of Lego, the year before last, and we visited Legoland, my dear son, decided that he would use some of the money he'd received from family members to spend in Legoland on me. And he knew that I loved sunflowers, and so he wanted to buy me this little Lego sunflower set. And it's super cute. And I remember putting it together while we were there in Denmark, and now it sits in my kitchen, and sometimes I twirl those sunflowers around like you can. So it's just a little thing, but it reminds me of some really, really good times. So that's kind of what I mean by meaningful shopping and souvenirs. And that's what this episode is all about. Got some really interesting stories. So my first guest is Patti Lefkos, and she was shopping for a meaningful souvenir on a trip to Nepal. And I particularly like this chat. It's a very special recording because Patti was able to demonstrate her purchase for me.
Earlier, I think it was 2009, my favorite shopping experience happened at Everest Base Camp, but Everest Base Camp North in Tibet. So we had flown from Beijing to Lhasa, and then in a group, we drove 5 or 6 days west of Lhasa. So you're really western Tibet, to go to sacred Mount Kailash, to do a 3-day Kora or walk around Kailash, over the Romala Pass, which is 18,600 feet, the highest I had ever been in my life.
Wow.
I was fine because we took a long time getting out there and went slowly to altitude. And then on the way back to Lhasa driving, we stopped by Everest Base Camp. We were staying, when you go to Everest Base Camp, you stay or spend the afternoon, whatever, in a tent compound. There are these black tents made of yak hair. And they're in a big square, and then there's a kind of a compound in the middle. So we were there kind of acclimatizing, not doing much one afternoon, and I wanted to have a little souvenir, something really light, because I didn't want the porters having to carry stuff all the time. I wanted to have just something little I could put in my backpack. Mm-hmm. And I went out, and there was a Tibetan, I guess he was Tibetan, Nepali, but ethnically Tibetan, selling bells. And the bells that were used in the Buddhist rituals.
Oh.
And there were 3 that were about 5 inches high. They're made of kind of silver with a bit of copper in it. So I wanted to pick them up and see what they were like. So I picked up each of them to see what the ringtone was like. And I couldn't really decide. So I can't remember how. Somehow I got him to agree to let me take them back into the tent that we were the hotel tent we were staying in.
Mm-hmm.
There were a few people in our group, and we rang all of them, and they kind of voted. And then I went to my Tibetan guide, Wangdu, and the 2 drivers, Pemba and Sonam. They were playing cards. They all insisted on this one bell, and it was the ugliest thing. No kidding. Like it was like the top had broken, the top section, and then it had been put back on, but crooked. But that's the one I got.
Oh.
And it's still here, and we use it for a dinner bell half the time.
Oh.
But it has an amazing, incredible tone.
Oh, I want to hear it.
There's something.
Oh, it sounds perfect already. Does it sound different to normal?
It does. See how it keeps ringing?
Yeah.
It's very quiet tonight. I don't know why.
It's
usually much louder.
It sounds perfect. I love it. What a fabulous souvenir, and especially to choose it in such a meaningful way. I love that. That's exactly the way I like to shop when I'm traveling. I love being able to get a demonstration of it as we chatted, and what a beautiful story. I don't want to go shopping for a bell like that anytime soon, because I certainly don't need a dinner bell in my house, because I can tell you it would be my son ringing it saying, "I'm hungry." So definitely no dinner bell in my future. But it was a great story. So thanks, Patti. Now, my next guest today is Lindsay Williams. And you might remember Lindsay from a previous episode. She's obsessed with language learning. And so you won't be surprised to know that is part of what she likes shopping for when she travels.
There are so many things that I want to buy when I'm away. And you see like these beautiful, huge, like ceramics or rugs and you think, wow, that's beautiful. How am I going to get that home? How am I ever going to get that home? And I've found over the years that there's 2 things for me that are worth it, that are normally quite light. The first one is art, especially if it's like on something that I can roll. So on like a piece of fabric, I can roll easily and just put in my backpack. So the second thing is language books. So I love going to a country and buying a book of the language or a language that's spoken in that country, like to teach me the language a little bit. And sometimes what I love about this and how interesting this is that the quality of these books, like how easily accessible they are, isn't always obvious. Like it would be easier to get in Malaysia, but I remember the one that I have for Malay I picked up from just like a street market that was happening with like books in Malacca, and there was just one there for Malay, and I thought, oh, this is my chance.
That's what I need.
Yeah, that would be cheaper than the proper bookshop. So that's the Malay one, and then I love getting them like and just having them there as like a memento when I get home. Really, really fun. Cool. Yeah, but the art as well I love, because like I say, you can just roll it up. It's normally really light, really easy, and then when you get home, it's something there that you can keep and you can have those memories of.
Yes, and you can walk past it every day and be reminded of a special time, a special trip. Exactly. Yeah. Oh, I'm the same as you. I love the idea of seeing things that I can use around the house, and big practical things, except that they're not practical to transport or to ship or to anything. And I have, like, from Japan, I have lots of small bowls and things like that, and I would love to have bigger things like that, but I don't, because impractical. So I every time I go, I bring back a few little bowls or little plates and things, and bit by bit, trip after trip, it slowly builds up over my lifetime. But
Japan is so great for shopping as well. Like you could walk around I say you could. I have walked around for just hours of like the Daiso and the Don Quixote, all of those shops with like just everything demands your attention for at least 10 seconds to be like, okay, what is this? I want this in my life. Though, do I need this? Do I need this in my life? Really?
Yes.
Oh, I do. Okay. Yeah.
And it's not so expensive. So it's, why would you say no?
Exactly.
I always regret because I lived in Japan for a couple of years, but then when I moved on from Japan, I was traveling full time and then moving to a new job in Europe. And so I couldn't, I sent a couple of things home, but I couldn't really go shopping and, have a lot of stuff. And so I gave away a lot of the things I had. And I still feel, nearly 20 years on, I've missed some of those things. And so now when I return to Japan, I'm always trying to, re-hoard the things that I used to own. So, I love the idea of looking for books. I haven't really looked at for instructional language books, except if I was living somewhere. But I do sometimes buy kids' books, especially in a language where the script is different, even though I'll never be able to read it unless I find someone who can read it to us. But I just, I like, it's good for my son to see that these, the different scripts exist and stuff. And, can still talk about the pictures. So
yeah. And especially if like a Japanese book or like an Arabic book where they're then the other way around, so to speak, that's so cool for a kid to be able to see. That's a brilliant idea.
I do often buy books of all kinds when I'm traveling. I guess there's sometimes souvenirs and sometimes just because I want them, even though books are heavy, which can be an issue, but books are just lovely things. So I love Lindsay's idea of stocking up on books to learn languages by when you're right there in the country. It's pretty cool. Now, my final guest today is a dear friend of mine who I first spoke with for the podcast like 5 years ago, nearly 4.5 years ago. But I've known Lola Akinmade-Åkerström for more than a decade through blogging initially, and we've met up around the world a few times. And I saw a couple of months back that she had come up with an amazing kind of pandemic idea to deal with the idea that there are artisans and shopkeepers all around the world who are usually selling their wares to people like us who are travelling and looking to buy something, meaningful and local as a souvenir to take home. And of course, there has been much less of that in the past 9 or 10 months. And she saw an opportunity to help out those artisans and guides by starting up something quite new. So her startup is called Local Purse, and Lola is going to tell you all about it.
So Local Purse, is my new startup, and it is a web-based platform that supports local guides and local artisans through live video shopping. And the reason we came up with this idea was, when the pandemic hit, the travel industry was hit really hard, and we all talked about the airlines, and the hotels and how they're losing business, but we weren't talking a lot about kind of the local guides and the artisans who create just amazing work and who also depend on traveling, and travelers coming in. And so when this idea came about, I was like, okay, how can we leverage, the future of retail, which is this kind of macro trend of like live video shopping? How can we use that to support the travel industry? Because one, the guides are like cultural ambassadors. They know the cultures, they take you around, and then the artisans preserve the culture. And the best part of travel truly is actually about those local connections and the kind of the cultural shopping, not so much just going to see the Eiffel Tower. It's beautiful, but it's not just the sightseeing, it's actually the one-on-one interaction with locals. So how can we foster that in an environment that you then also get something back from that experience to remember it by? So that was kind of how this whole idea of Local Purse came about, where it's not just supporting just the artisan, but also the guide, because they're going to show you around, take you there, interpret, be like your eyes, your local purser on the ground, kind of bargaining and chatting as well. So that's kind of where the whole idea came about.
It's such a cool idea because, I love to have things from travels that, that I remember buying or whatever, but are special. But also a lot of those things, I just love to have them in my house. I love to have, something from Morocco or something from Thailand. And certainly I can't get there at the moment. And from Australia, it might be a couple of years before we can get there. But rather than just order something online, to be able to actually kind of meet the people involved is pretty cool. Can you just explain a bit about like how an online shopping experience kind of works? Like talk us through it.
So when we did our soft launch in December, we did kind of like a group broadcast just to give people an idea. So, I was the host and then I was talking to the guide. They could ask questions. There were, products scrolling below. So you could actually buy, shop, at the same time. You can see your cart. And, for example, when we went to the rug shop, Aziz was pulling up all the rugs and you could see the exact rug below, you could buy it. So that's when we do our kind of group experiences. But then what we're launching this month is just a one-on-one where it's just you and the guide. And then, instead of the host, it's you. And then the guy takes you to the shop and then you can actually point to which rug you want. He takes a picture of the product and creates it on the fly, which means he actually just puts the price and then sends it to you, and then right away on your own end, then you can load it and then add it to your cart.
That's
so it's
magic.
actually, so it's fun, it's exciting, it's great. And, and so that's what we're launching this month. And we're really super excited that, that it will not only just give you that thrill of being there again, but also now the name of the artisan or the name of the owners, and then you can say, oh yeah, when I was with Aziz. And that is what Local Post really is about, is actually trying to recapture the connection of travel so that it's not just like, oh, I bought this online and it was a great artisan, but it's like, oh, Aziz showed me this in a shop when I bought it, and it creates a connection. That for us, it's all about the connection.
Yeah, absolutely. Do you get a bit of a chance to chat with the guide when you do that one-on-one experience? So you kind of learn more about it?
It's going to be, so it's going to be, the guide is going to see you, you see them, you're talking one-on-one together. And then, the guide then turns the video to the artisan, and shows you around and moves around. So yeah, it's going to be like, you see each other, you talk to each other. Yes.
I love that. That's very clever. It's in Morocco only to start with, or?
Yeah, so we're going to launch other destinations, in partnership with Intrepid, who is our global partner. And we're currently onboarding smaller, independent guides and artisans as well. But Morocco is the first one we're launching this month. And then we've got, other destinations coming, for example, with Istanbul or in South America and stuff. So we're really working close to try and get those out as soon as possible because the need is pressing. And we don't know when the lockdowns are going to be, it's going to take a while for all the vaccines to get to everyone. Plus, when we run this kind of broadcast, just 1 hour with the rug shop in Morocco in December, he sold at least 6-7 rugs, and he hasn't sold anything since he hadn't sold a lot since, the pandemic hit and nobody was there. So the impact is great for the local artisans. And that's why we're trying to move as fast as we can in a way that's stable, because we just can't, it has to be a stable system, make sure, all the checks and balances are in place so that people can start at least recouping some of their losses.
Oh, I love it. It's a kind of a genius solution. It's like the tech side of it sounds tricky to me, but yes. I'm sure that you have got that under control because you have many talents and many connections. So,
yes. Yeah, and with the tech for us, we're really trying to make it super, super simple so that people aren't downloading things, installing. We want to try and make it as simple as possible.
From the user perspective, just so it's
from the user perspective,
have a chat. Exactly. Here you go. This is what
exactly.
Yeah. Oh, that's brilliant. I love it. Well, good luck with it. I'm sure.
Thank you.
We'll be hearing more about it.
Yes, I hope so. Absolutely.
It was fabulous to chat with Lola about Local Purse. I'm so proud of her, and it's such a great combination of all her skills. She and a friend have put this whole thing together on their own, completely bootstrapped. She is an ex-software engineer, so that helps. There's a lot of tech behind the scenes that she's managed to do. But she's also, of course, an incredible travel writer and travel photographer. So really got all those connections in place. And I just think it's a great idea. I think the pandemic has shown us there's lots of different ways to do things. I'm thinking of I regularly chat with actually a friend who's a previous guest on the podcast, Eva Vesterling, who's now living in Morocco. And we catch up, every few weeks and have a video call. And she'll often take me on a walking tour of Morocco near the desert there. And, I've met camels, I've seen the dunes, I've been in local cafes. And it's nearly as good as actually visiting Morocco to be able to chat with Eva while she's there. I think that's, it's amazing this you wouldn't expect out of a pandemic that we would have this new appreciation for experiencing things in different ways. Obviously, being there face to face is superior, but a video tour is actually a pretty good way. So I think Lola is onto something with this idea. So let me sum up. Thank you very much for listening to this episode about meaningful souvenirs and shopping. I hope it sparks off some memories of particular items you've brought home from your travels. I would love to hear about them. Pop over to the Thoughtful Travellers Facebook group and do tell me, or even better, share a picture so we can all share some of these thrills and, those things we have around the home that remind us of our past trips. And a big thank you to all of the guests today. So I started off chatting with Patti Lefkos, and she has written a great book and also runs a not-for-profit connected to Nepal, both of those. So do look her up at her website, which is pattyshalesLefkos.com. Also, I chatted with Lindsay Williams, and you can find Lindsay at her website, Lindsay Does Languages, which is at lindsaydoeslanguages.com. She's truly language obsessed. It's awesome. And lastly, of course, I chatted with Lola, and we were talking about her new startup, Local Purse, and you can find that at localpurse.com. I also have an old episode about great travel souvenirs that you might want to listen to if you enjoyed this topic. It was way back at episode 42, so you can find that by scrolling back in your podcast player or going to the show notes at notaballerina.com/42. Of course, the show notes for this episode are at notaballerina.com/222 for episode 222. So that's it for today, and as always, thank you so much for listening. This has been another episode of the Thoughtful Travel Podcast. Show notes and other information are at notaballerina.com/podcast. Join me again soon for another chat about why we travel. Bye for now.